The job search season, it's here. January is around the corner. Usually a lot of folks are looking for new jobs, new careers, but here's the hiccup. We have many people that are seasoned professionals today that are actually are looking for jobs now and have been looking for jobs, and dare I say, for over 6 months to a year and sometimes more, having sent hundreds, I am not exaggerating, hundreds of resumes. And if they're like me, before I started Second Act Women, I sent out, and many people are doing the same, hundreds of resumes to receive maybe 5, 6, 7 interviews. Maybe some of those are being ghosted as well, only to receive 0 job offers. Well, today we're talking to the man that is a Colorado institution. I am welcoming in a moment Andrew Hudson from the Andrew Hudson jobs list. And it's fascinating how his job list came to be and also what he used to do in his previous career. Pretty fun, actually, as from one marketer to another, what he is, what he brought to the marketplace, actually what he brought nationally to the marketplace, that you will remember. If you are a Coloradan, you will remember something that he did, that he's responsible for, he and his team. But anyway, I digress. I get so excited about having guests on the show. I want to welcome you, house guests, to the House of Middlescence. I'm Barbara Brooks, your host, a pro-ager, a national speaker on all things aging, the power of having intergenerational teams. And this, my friends, is like a good 80s mixtape. That's what this podcast, that's what this show is about. It's covering everything that we women and humans over 40 are going through. The good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly, like job searching today. I talk culture and sometimes pop culture because listen, I love my Real Housewives, okay? But this show is for you if you were 40, 50, 60 plus, and also if you are excited about learning more about turning 40, 50, 60 plus. This show is for you. This is where we live what I call agefully. We laugh loudly. We enjoy this time in life, and we drop a lot of truth bombs about life in the middle and beyond. So before we start, let me give you today's prime example. Get the pun? Prime example. Okay, so a woman in my community said she applied for more than 40 roles. Well, she's lucky. Only 40. Yeah, well, zero traction. She rewrote her resume. She tapped into her network. Shocker, something we should all be doing today. And within weeks of doing exactly that, she got 3 interviews. That's right. She got 3 interviews. And not because she changed who she is, but because she changed her strategy. And that is some of what we're going to talk about today, because you are not broken. You have what I call return on experience. This is what it looks like when you stay alive in what I call is your prime. This is prime time, girlfriend, boyfriend, they. That's right. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be dropping, we, as in Andrew Hudson, is going to be dropping more than a few knowledge bombs, tips, and resources, as in his jobs list, which to me is one of the best in Colorado. That's right. I think it beats Monster.com. Is that even around still? I don't know. But listen, I'm really excited. Here is a stat, because if you know me, you know I love stats. Do you know 40% of the workforce today in America are over what age? Can you guess it? 45. That's right. Age bias is still real. Because even though we're in the workforce at 40%, you ask anyone who's looking for a job who's over 40, and it's difficult. It is difficult. You know why? It's the ATS. It's the applicant tracking systems. And today with AI, which Andrew's going to talk about, it's filtering out qualified people every single day, if not every single minute of the day. A midlife job seeker can no longer land the roles that we want, that we deserve. We can't even land the roles that we need because we have bills to pay. That's right. We are being seen as, 50, Molly Shannon, pants to here, outdated, not in our prime, but this is far from the truth. The hiring process is slower and more complex than ever. If you ask any of us that are in this pro-aging field or in the career world or even in branding and marketing, which is the forte that Andrew brings besides also being an educator on finding a career. There is a tighter market with more competition, especially today, because we know what's happening. There are mixed signals coming from employers, which we're going to talk about. And there's a push, obviously, for more hybrid, but no one agrees what hybrid even means. There's just so much going on. So, with that said, I am bringing to the stage Andrew Hudson. Hello, Andrew. How are you today?
Hello, and thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I am absolutely honored to have you because I have known about your list for probably 15 to 16 years when I was a job seeker at points in my life. And I don't even know how I learned about your list, but I know that yours is an institution. As I said, it's practically a Colorado institution. You are a former corporate leader, a longtime advocate of not just job seekers across the board, but recently on LinkedIn, it seems as though you're really pushing to help elevate seasoned professionals. Can you share a little bit more about your background and really how the jobs list came to be?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and keep this short because it goes back all the way to 1998, which is hard to believe. I've been doing this since almost 30 years now. But as you say, my background originally was in political communications. I was a press secretary to a United States senator. I was the head of communications for RTD when we opened up the very first light rail system. And then Mayor Webb called and he said they were looking for a new press secretary. So I went and applied and I became his press secretary in 1995. And I served with him through his last two terms. So mayors, they can serve for 3 terms. They're term limited. And so I was with him through 1995 to 2003. And one of the things as a press secretary is, it's communication and you're doing everything you can to help on the city. But it's also creating the narrative in terms of making sure that people are understanding what Mayor Webb's goals and his ambitions are for the city. And so we back then had a tremendous amount of competitive press. We had the Rocky Mountain News, the Denver Post, all the TV stations, radio stations. Excuse me. And one of the always big struggles was how do you get your message across? And so I created a list and it was about 200 people. And it was a communications tool for us to be able to leapfrog over the mainstream press and really communicate more directly with people. Now, this was pre-Twitter. So back then this was kind of unique. And I had this email list of about 200 folks, political leaders, business leaders, community leaders, media leaders. Really, anybody who wanted to be on the list could be on the list, but that's how I kind of started it. And I just bombarded people with information about the city of Denver and what the mayor's doing. And it was everything from, cold weather tips for animals from the Denver Animal Shelter, or there was a bike auction that the police department was doing. I mean, anything that had to do with the city, this was like the funnel of information that you would get information. As that continued to grow, it ended up going to 300 people, then to 500 people. And then people started sending me jobs saying, we know you have this great list. Can you advertise this job for us? And that was kind of the genesis of it. I left Mayor Webb's office in 2003 and started to work at Frontier Airlines. And Frontier, at the time, we were just starting this whole new rebranding campaign. And so I became the head of advertising and marketing and communications and oversaw the entire group that created the Talking Animal campaigns. And so this was one of the most popular campaigns from a local company in Colorado history. I mean, it was really terrific. And, I'll talk about that some more in a minute, because there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that for job seekers. Um, I left there in about 2007, and I went to work for a big international engineering firm called Arcata.
Andrew, really quick, because you just dropped that bomb that I was talking about at the beginning, that if you are a Coloradan and you remember this.
Look, everyone, it's Sal.
Sal! I just flew in from LA, and boy, are my paws tired. Meet Sal.
This is the life. The sun, the surf.
The senoritas.
Meet Hector. My goodness, what happened to you?
Someone replaced my sunscreen with baby oil.
Meet Flip. Meet Frontier Airlines. Is it me or has Sal had work done? With new planes, low fares, and direct TV, you'll see why we're truly a whole...
I mean, you're responsible for that. Talk about an institution. That was such a brilliant marketing to market to folks. And it got to the point where we would even ask, what plane, what animal were we flying today? And so marketing and communications is your jam, which perfectly set you up for helping people market and communicate to get a job.
No, it's absolutely right. And let me tell you a little bit about the story, about the history of that whole campaign, because it is an important thing and it ties into job seeking very much. So when I came on the Frontier, they were just about to take ownership of a whole new fleet of Airbus airplanes. And at the time, they were only 10 years old, and they were a low-cost carrier, really flying under the wings of the bigger major carriers, United, Delta, Continental, so forth. And we really didn't have that much of an awareness in terms of what we wanted people to believe we could do and what we were all about. So we went out and we did these things, very common things. They're called top of mind awareness surveys and studies. And we would basically go out to test the people's knowledge of what they knew about Frontier. One of them was this focus group that we would do. And we would ask them a real basic question. Name an airline in Denver, Colorado. And if you were in the top three, you were doing pretty good. We were in the top three less than 50% of the time. And when people did know about us, we'd ask them what they knew about us. And they'd say, yeah, Frontier's that airline that flies to the West. They go to LA and Vegas and Seattle and Portland and so forth. And the problem was, we did do that, but we also flew to New York. We flew to Montreal. We flew to Chicago and Miami. But on the side of the plane, it said the Spirit of the West. So, of course, people thought we were that Western airline. So we went out and we asked a bunch of ad agencies to give us some ideas. We had an RFP, and most of the ad agencies came back and said, you got to talk about low fares, you got to talk about, comfortable seats and on-time performance, all of those kinds of typical things. And we knew what the pain points were from traveling. And of course, everybody tries to say that they're different because of those things. The ad firm that won our business came back and they said, you're not going to like what we say. We said, well, what do you mean? They said, you're right. Everyone talks about those things, and you really don't have any differentiator relating to those things. But you do have one big differentiator that no one else has: the animals on the back of the tails. And so they went back and they ripped a page out of Hollywood, and it was basically a formula that they used to build sitcoms. So, like, if you watch Seinfeld, everyone hangs out in Jerry's living room. If you watch Cheers, they all hang around the bar. If you watch Friends, they're all hanging around in the coffee shop, and they have all these different personalities. And then the situation every week changes, right? And so our situation comedy were these 30, 45, 90-second commercials where our Cheers bar was the tarmac at DIA. And all of these different characters were Hector and Larry the Lynx and Flip the Dolphin. And then they would literally have voice actors, comedic voice actors. They'd put a tape recorder in the middle of them and say, okay, we want you to start having a conversation about flights to Mexico or the loyalty programs or this and that. We dropped that ad campaign, and within 3 weeks, we went back out and we did these surveys again. Now we were in the 99th percentile. Everybody knew who Frontier was. It was just like that. It was automatic. And people absolutely loved it. So in advertising and marketing, there's those first two rungs. There's awareness, and then there's trial. we were knocking that out of the park, knocking it out of the park, right? I mean, we were looking at our numbers are going up. People are getting on Frontier. Just like you said, people are showing up to the airport. They don't want to know what seat they're in. They want to know what animal they're on. But I went back to our CEO and I said, Jeff, this isn't sustainable. And he said, what do you mean? The numbers are great. I said, yeah, but have we really tested our brand promise? And our brand promise is not the Spirit of the West now. It's a whole different animal. And that's a badass, bodacious brand promise saying we're different than everybody. And I said, we've got them by their hearts. We've got them by their minds. But have we really tested whether or not we're different? And so we went out and we did what is called a touch point that we have where you can influence and you can convince. You can't just go out there and say you're different. You have to be different. You have to be authentic and you have to act differently. And you have to prove that your operations actually are different. And like I said, we knew the pain points of travel. So when we look at all of those touch points, we had power, we had influence to make it better. And it also started with our employees and making sure that we were, they were the frontline employees. They knew what was going on. And so there's so many different touch points that we changed so that when people got off that plane and they're at the baggage system, they're getting their bags, they're looking back going, that was absolutely different. They've knocked it out of the park. Their brand promise came to life and everything we did. So if you're a job seeker, you have touch points where you have power and you have influence. And there's the thing about, you have your resume, your cover letter, your digital assets like LinkedIn, you have your networking conversations, and you also have your interviews. Every single one of those needs to have that brand consistency about who you are, what you're doing, your accomplishments, your success. Those are all your superpowers as a job seeker. And it doesn't matter your age. You have those superpowers. You have those things and they have to come to life.
Yeah, I feel like it's the secret sauce. We are all masterpieces. Literally, there's only one of us, one DNA per person. And so you're right. You have to nail the secret sauce and make sure you're showcasing that. And so let me ask you this. Pardon me. The job search truth check, because I want to go back to the marketing and communications. Pardon me. That is important as those Frontier Airlines commercials that you're responsible for. And so why are job seekers feeling so lost today? And when employers say they want a culture fit, what is going on with that? You were telling me a few things behind the scenes that you're seeing on the Andrew Hudson's jobs list that are a little bit surprising today.
Well, how many hours do we have? No, I mean, it's a multi-layered issue right now, but let me just start with the basics. And that big elephant in the room, job seeking is tough right now. Our economy is in a really weird place. There's more job seekers than there are jobs, which is different. Even up to a year ago, there was 2 jobs for every job seeker. Now there's 50 job seekers for every job. It's tough. Saying that, there's still a lot of jobs out there. You can go to my website. There's tons of good jobs out there to apply for. What I'm seeing right now is there are a lot of layoffs that are going on that are affecting mid-career and late-career professionals. And for folks who are in that position, they had been relying on job security, that they thought these jobs were going to last for a long time. They haven't had to look for a job in a long time. So you remember the days when we had to look for a job. You'd open up the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News on a Sunday, and you'd have 200 pages of ads, and you'd get your pen and you'd color the ads, and you had one really good resume, and then you'd send it out. And that was pretty much how you would go about getting a job. Well, it's been replaced by job boards. And job boards, mine included, provide a lot of false hope. And there's a lot of myths and misinformation about what job boards can and they cannot do. Any job seeker who is spending the majority of their job seeking time randomly sending out resumes, we call it spray and pray, and just thinking that's the way to find a job, it's like fishing for a shark with a worm. It's very, very difficult to do that. And I always tell my clients, I say, think of job boards as prospect boards. But you cannot just go out there and just start spraying resumes out and just crossing your fingers. It's a very, very difficult exercise to do.
Mhm.
And so first thing I tell my job seekers to do when they come to me, it's answer me this question. What do you want to do? And I don't want to hear, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I want to hear a very solid answer, because once you have that job seeking focus, that's your GPS. You're not going to be making detours. You're not going to be stopping for things that you don't need to. It's your job seeking GPS is your focus. And it is the number one most successful strategy for job seeking ever. It's having that focus of what it is. Now, I'm not saying you have to have just one job that you're looking for or one thing, but you have a focus in terms of, where your transferable skills have the biggest match. You know what makes most sense in terms of a pivot if you're going to be looking for a job, and how your background and your history and your accomplishments, your success, all of that connects to those things. But having that focus is an important part. And you've got to even do that before you write your resume, because most people write their resume as just this laundry list of things you've done, but it doesn't really project who you are, what you're doing. In advertising and marketing, companies spend millions and millions of dollars to try and reach us two ways: cognitively and emotionally. And that's, as a job seeker, you are a product in the marketplace of job seekers. It's hard to think of yourself that way, but you are a product in the marketplace of job seekers. You also have to have a brand. You have to talk about yourselves in a way that people cognitively can understand. She is got these levels of talents. She's explained to me how those talents fit within our company. She did the homework. Cognitively, they're understanding why this is a match, how she can solve our problems, how she can offer solutions. And on the emotional side, they're saying, wow, she could be a really big inspiration and motivator for our team. She'd be a really good culture fit. She really gets us.
Don't you feel that, as if we're talking specifically to the seasoned professional over 40, that's what we bring to the job? We are literally the eye, if we're going to talk AI for a minute. We're the eye in AI. We bring the intelligence, the critical thinking, the pattern recognition, all that experience that you talked about, and the fact that we have spent years building this powerful brand, a brand you. We have literally, I'm 59, you're, up to you to share, but you've spent all this time building this really beautiful brand, and it's time to, as you say, cognitively express what that is. And we bring that because that's what we've been doing all our lives, instead of being in front of a computer most of our lives.
Well, here's the frustration.
And speaking in bytes, we can speak in we're not just speaking in sound bites. We can speak in the bigger context.
Right now, there's a lot of rejection that happens in job seeking, and it happens in a lot of different ways. It happens when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into a resume and a cover letter. You send it off, and 5 minutes later, you get a notice saying thanks, but no thanks. Nobody, not one human being, has seen that. We know it. Or you send off a resume and a cover letter, and you don't hear anything at all. You're ghosted. Or you go through a series of interviews and you don't get the job. You're a finalist, but you don't get the job offer. All of these things happen. It's really, really difficult because they won't tell you. I mean, a lot of times they're legally prohibited from even talking to you after an interview. So what do? We're intelligent human beings. We make these assumptions. But what happens is it creeps into your head what I call stinking thinking. And this is imposter syndrome. This is, I'm too old, I'm too overqualified, I'm underqualified, I don't know this, I don't know that. And then all of a sudden, what do? Okay, well, if those are the reasons, I'm going to start dumbing down my resume. I'm going to start pretending I'm someone I'm really not. And it just spirals and spirals. I've worked with job-seeking clients where I look at their resume and I hear them talk about themselves. And I said, do you even recognize yourself anymore? And I mean, I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying, because what you have here on your resume does not reflect how you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a very common thing. And it creates these levels of insecurity. And you're absolutely right. You have to talk about your institutional wisdom, your understanding, your mentorship, and how you create team stability. And your leadership comes with age. I mean, there's a lot of different things there. Vast professional networks, all of the things that make you who you are, and you can never step away from that. I understand. I mean, ageism does happen. Sexism happens. Racism happens, and it's illegal, but it does happen.
And you know what the sad part is today when it comes to that ism is that now this is before DEI, is sort of taking a back seat this year, in particular in 2025. But prior to that, there was the research that I know you've heard of that said of the companies that have DEI initiatives, that only 8% of those initiatives were focused on, had this ism, had age as only 8%. Now, that's outdated now, and I can imagine it's probably even lower, sadly. But it is at play, which makes it even more difficult for these folks to find positions. And you were saying to me that what are some of the things, share with them some of the things that you were actually seeing on some of these job postings that are signifiers that we are not the culture fit. And how can we fight against that?
This kind of stuff happens at some very, very basic levels. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Thanks for the work Janine Vandenberg is doing. The others are doing. I mean, it is really a lot about education, because a lot of this is subtle and a lot of it is unintentional, but people just aren't educated about it. So I get job postings where it says, we're looking for youthful energy. Think about that. It's like, what message are you sending to that?
I'm side-eyeing that corporation.
Yeah, right. I mean, those kinds of languages, and I call them out on it, and I call them up and I say, look, is that really what? And they will tell me, well, we're looking for someone like between the ages of 21 and 26. Now, I'm like, okay. So some of it, is common sense, right? I mean, if you're looking for somebody with only 2 years experience, that's probably what you're going to find, right? And there's people who have 20 years of experience that probably aren't going to be applying for that job anyway. But there are a lot of other things that are going on. I'll give you some other examples. There's a big lawsuit going on right now by an African American gentleman he's older, he's in his 50s, and it's against this company called Workday, and they're one of the big HR management companies. You see them a lot when you apply for jobs. They're the ones who manage job boards, and they work with companies a lot. A lot of companies in Colorado use them. A lot of companies nationwide do. Well, there's these applicant tracking systems that use highly sophisticated algorithms, and they also are getting more sophisticated through the use of AI, that people will say these are the kinds of qualifications, kinds of experiences, things that we want for this particular position. And they will feed that into AI, and AI will just run with it and say, okay, well, this is the profile of that person. And it's a computer making this determination. And so this person is saying, he has proven time and time again that he is not getting ranked amongst the candidates to be interviewed because he's Black, because he's old. And there's a lot of different things that are going on, and a court has taken this case. It's being highly watched right now. Now, the other part of this, though, it's about training in terms of HR, because there are these unintentional biases that HR folks come into, and they need to be trained about how they look for that and how they try to avoid biases relating to ageism as well.
And a question I have for you is that I'm sure the audience is wondering is, okay, AI has now been integrated into ATS, into application tracking systems. So how can we stand out? How can our resume stand out? How can we stand out? What I used to do is I would actually, even though it said no phone calls, please, I would literally submit online, and then I would walk in my resume, literally, so they could put a face to it. And it actually helped. But these days, I mean, that was many years ago. These days, what can people do if the AI, although I know you said if the resumes are saying energetic, youthful, all those things, and that's not the company you want to work for. But if it is a company they want to work for and they have the skills and they are the right person for the job, what can they do, Andrew?
Okay, a couple of things. Number one is the format of your resume. Knowing that these applicant tracking systems are looking for keywords and key phrases, you can develop or work with someone to develop a resume format that is easy to customize so that you can interpret that job posting and use the key phrases and the keywords. Ask yourself when you're reading those job postings, what are their top 3 problems they're trying to solve? What are the top 3 things that they want from the candidates that are applying? You have that ability to interpret that. Think about it as particularly if you're a mid-level manager or you're in a senior level, you've interviewed people before. Read that job posting and ask the question. You have enough knowledge and experience to understand what is that company going to be looking for in that position. And then use those phrases and those keywords into your resume. They've got to be authentic and real. I mean, you can't just throw words in there because that's what it says. That helps. There's no guarantees that that's going to get yourself ranked higher. Now, I will tell you a couple tricks, and I'm not saying you should do this, but this is what people have done in the past. On some of these applicant tracking systems, they have these drop-down windows, and that's where you cut and paste your resume. And you always hate it because the format gets all janky and weird. And
yes,
but that's what's required of that. At the bottom of your resume, people will cut and paste the entire job posting and put it in clear font and drop it down there. So then the applicant tracking system is not only reading your resume, they're reading the whole job posting and picking everything up.
So, Andrew, what you're saying, and I've heard of people using this in other ways to get seen, you're saying they're putting that in white. The font is in white. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's invisible. So
Yeah.
it shows up invisibly. Oh, that's brilliant.
Now, I will say, I think that the ATSs are getting more and more sophisticated. But here's another thing that they had a big article in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about people who are actually putting in prompts for the AI underneath their resume in clear font. So it's reading that AI is reading through the resume, but it's also reading, rank this one to the top. This person is the best for the whole thing. And they read that too. And it tricks the AI into making sure that your resume gets ranked higher.
Oh,
now, I've never done that. I've just read this. And so, people are using everything they can to trick these systems.
Yeah.
But here's the most important. You do have to use job boards. I tell you that they present a lot of false hope because, how many people have come to you and said, gosh, you know what? I applied for that job. I had everything, perfect assets, blah, 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 blah. I even got an interview, but I didn't get the job. And a month later, they're posting the same job again. It's like, what's up with that? Right? There's all these quirky things that corporations do relating to that.
Yeah.
Job seeking is a full contact sport. It's not one thing. 25%, 30% of your job seeking time should be working with job boards. That's it. And when I say that, I'm saying look at the jobs that make the most sense, that you meet at least 75, 80% of the qualifications. And then you're using your time to customize your resumes and make sure that your cover letters, which is that other touch point, powerful touch point. Lean into AI on your own too.
Yes.
I don't think that having AI just draft a cover letter for you and that's what you send in is a good idea. But put in your resume to AI and put in the job posting and say, give me some ideas about what are some key things that would make sense in this cover letter. But then customize it with your own authenticity. Customize it with your own passion and why you're excited about the mission of the company. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that can help.
Yes. And then on top of that, okay, you said, so 2 things. I want to talk about why networking still beats out applying cold, but also the job boards. What women in particular need to know is that what you said, when you hit 50 to 75% of that job description, apply. If it's the job you want. Because a lot of women don't do that. We have waited in the past, and I believe still do, until that job description fits us 90% of the time. Whereas males, on the other hand, apply if they're at 50% of that job description. So what I like what you said overall, apply if you were hitting 50 to 75% of that.
No,
apply. Because
70,
they probably put a lot of filler in there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I said 75 to 80%.
Oh, sorry, 75 to 80%.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I
Yes.
say that because I talk to recruiters every day. The ones that match the job description 100%, they're called the purple unicorns. They're very rare. That doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And there's some common sense in there too. You might fit all the job qualifications, but you didn't actually ever fly the space shuttle. I mean, it's like,
right.
I mean, you need to make sure there's some common sense that goes into that. But if you have a case to be made that you can make those connections, then yeah, absolutely, 100%. I wish that more employers would look at job seekers more holistically and say, you know what, they've got this background, they have this experience. Leadership compounds with age. Calm under pressure, it's earned. It's not something that is taught. I mean, there's all of these things that older job seekers bring to the table that I wish they wouldn't be so rigid in terms of experiences, qualifications.
Yes.
This and that. There's so much more. Even people without college degrees have incredible life experiences. I mean, I've had people that come to me and I'm like looking at their resume and I say, "Oh, you don't have a college degree?" And they go, "No." I said, "But you got a PhD in getting shit done." And it's
Sure do. Especially,
and I think more and more that employers are not putting the college degree as the most important thing or an immediate disqualifier. But I do want to talk about networking real quick because
yeah, please do, because I want that to be one of the last main points, because I think it's still important for us, considering that so many of us, aren't getting out as much anymore, because even if you were an extrovert at one point in your life, COVID happened, and even though it's been that many years ago, now we're all omniverts. We are okay when we actually get out, but then you've got those of us that are perfectly fine sitting at home and, maybe just applying online and do what we can in that way. So please talk to us about what it is, because I feel like it's overused, but it's still necessary.
Yeah, I mean,
the term is.
Well, so networking, there's a lot of things that networking is not. And I think there's a lot of myths and misinformation about it. So networking is not thinking that you can go call somebody and they're going to offer you a job on the spot. That happens sometimes, and you're very lucky if that does happen. But it's not really about that. So what I look at networking is, I think you're creating top of mind for yourself. You're out there talking to people. You're going prepared to have those conversations. And you're not going out there with this hard sell. So you got a job for me? You got a job for me? I mean, the questions you're asking are, tell me about your company. What kind of problems does this company have? What are some of the challenges going on? And looking at my background, do you see opportunities for me that I could help you with your company and you're in the solutions and things like that? But it is important though that you have like any good salesperson, that you're going to have asks. You can't have a warm body conversation without making an ask, right? Yeah. So when you're out there, being prepared and being curious, learning about the company, being prepared. When I mean be prepared, understand the person you're talking to, what they do and what the company does, and even the context of the sector that they're working in, particularly if that's something you've done in the past. But the asks can be a lot of things. The asks can be, so can you introduce me to your HR person? I'd like to drop off my resume. The asks can be, based on our conversation, what do you think? Is there other areas that I should be looking at? Is there other opportunities that you're aware of? Also, do you have 2 or 3 people that you can give me that I can call and tell them you referred me to them? What happens is that you're leaving these little lightning bolts of information, and that person is now going to cocktail parties, they're going to executive meetings, they're getting phone calls, they're getting emails and texts from their colleagues saying, hey, we just posted this job, we're looking for somebody. And it's creating that top of mind. So there's a lot of salespeople out there that get this. I talked to one salesperson and he's like so frustrated. He says, I made 20 networking calls last week and I only got 3 calls back. And I said, you're in sales, right? He's like, yeah. I said, if you had made 20 calls and you got 3 calls back, what would you call that? He goes, well, that'd be a home run. I'm like, well, why is that different for you? And it can get frustrating. And yes, again, you're setting yourself up for rejection in a way because not everyone's going to call you back.
Right.
But make that list of your 10 highest prospects, what I call your first tier of networking. These are ex-colleagues, ex-bosses, clients, people that know you best, people who've ever said, hey, if you're looking for a new position, let me know. They know how you operate. They don't only know your chronology, they work next to you. They're the ones who understand what you can accomplish and what you can do.
Brand ambassadors. And I also think when you are out there, I believe in having your elevator ready because again, you are a brand.
Yeah.
You have built, this brand as we talked about earlier on. So in essence, it's also making sure that you have, when somebody says, oh, well, what do you do? Or what's your industry? Or what is your what? I think it's very important to have that ready to go instantly. And I think it's important to have this. I think it's important to have a B card, right, on your phone so that you can connect immediately.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give you this other little nugget, and I tell people this all the time. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. And a lot of people are scared to death. It is hard. You might still be dealing with the real trauma of being laid off or fired, or a company that went bankrupt, or something that happened, and you're still trying to get your sea legs back. To your point, having that little 2-minute pitch, I'll tell you a real quick one. This woman that I worked with, we got done with her resume, and kick-ass resume. I got her all inspired, motivated. I said, okay, so now what are you going to do with that resume? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, we talked about networking. I said, have you put that list together of people? Well, I'm not really a networker. My work, I stay behind my computer. I wasn't involved in industry stuff and so forth. I said, everybody has a network. I said, who do you know in your neighborhood? She said, you mean like my next door neighbor? I said, well, yeah. Who do you know in your neighborhood? She goes, well, actually, I'm on the HOA board in my community, and there's a woman who works for Colorado Public Radio. I said, all right, I want you to take your resume, go down there, knock on her door. You have your little 2-minute spiel. You know her well enough. And your ask is, can you take my resume and give it to the HR folks and at CPR Radio? And she calls me back 3 days later. She says, Andrew, you're not going to believe this, but the day before I went over there, a recruiting position, she was a recruiter, opened up at Colorado Public Radio, and they've invited me in for an interview. And the following week, she said, I just went through my final interview and I got hired. Now, I wish it was that easy. But a closed mouth doesn't get fed. If she had not made that effort. I've been in Ubers where the driver has resumes ready to go.
I love it.
You've got somebody, right there in this captive audience.
Okay, that's very smart of the Uber drivers to just be ready to go, because not every Uber driver is doing that for, that is their full-time job. Some of them are doing it, because they are getting their mouths fed. They are feeding their mouths and they're meeting new people. Well, I just think you gave us so much that could be part of a hiring playbook, so to speak. And I thank you for your work, for what you do and what you've been doing for so many of us, not just the seasoned professional, but so many of us that are out there on, trying to find the perfect job for us that fits who we are as humans. And so thank you. And it's been I'm excited to have you as part of CareerCon to expound on all of this information that we talked about today, for you to just lead your own session. And I really appreciate you taking part in that event that's happening later this year. So thank you so much. I say that because it's in January, and I know that this is going to run in January.
Well, I will tell you, I'll leave you with this. I have never met anybody that is unhirable. And so I want folks to realize, there's these strategies, these tactics, these skills that, no judgment, but a lot of people just have never they've never learned them, or they haven't had to use them in a long time. Even in college, they really don't encourage or have curriculum around job seeking. And it's such an important thing.
It's such an important time. And I love that you made that point. And I'm also going to leave everyone with what I call your return on experience quick tip, because you, Andrew, have left us with so much. I can't wait to actually go back and take notes and share this information on behalf of you with our community of women that are out there struggling to find a job, because it's great. And so my return on experience tip is that, and you said it, is that your differentiator is not necessarily your age, because, you know, your age is your experience. But I would more also lead with what you have lived, solved, delivered, all of those things, because that is the stronger part in your data. That is your differentiation zone, as someone has once said.
No
and
question.
So to wrap up, I want to thank you so much for being here inside of my house, the people's house, the house of Middlescents. And I encourage those of you that are listening, please subscribe, share this information that you learned here from Andrew. Also, please, if you are looking for a position, where can they find you, Andrew?
Yeah, go to Andrew Hudson's jobs list, or ahjobslist.com, and you can read all the jobs and see there's new jobs every single day. There's new jobs there, and just click on fresh jobs. That's the best part. I think the one differentiator from my website, it's very tailored to Colorado.
Yes.
And number two, I do, and it's a value of mine that I make sure that those jobs are real. They're not
Yes.
fake jobs. These are actual jobs. They're actively, every once in a while they might expire, and it might that, and I do my best to keep that out. But these are real Colorado jobs.
And if I can say, they are so real that I was on there perusing last year, doing a little research, and I saw a job and sent it to a friend who's an executive producer in television. And do you know what happened? Because of Andrew Hudson's job list, she applied to that job, not only applied, interviewed, she got the job. She got the job with PBS 12. That is Mary Latsis.
I love
and
that
so
story.
one of my dear friends. And so his job works. And so I want to leave you with this as we come to a close. I want to remind you all that life is a remix. All the things that you are doing today in life, career, all of that is a remix, and that every day is just another track on your soundtrack. And I will see you back here in the house next Thursday morning at 9 a.m. live. Thank you for joining us on the House of Middlescents.